I don't have much to show for all my work so far. My Lazy Susan just looks like a round piece of plywood that spins. So in order for me to make it a little fancier, I want to put a molding around the top layer. These pieces of paper represent the approximate sizes of the 5 pieces of wood that I'll have to make in order to make a 5-pieced round molding around my Lazy Susan. You can see that the inner of the 2 circles represents the outside dimensions of the Lazy Susan top, and then the outer circle represents the edge of the molding. The point of using paper is so that I waste as little wood as possible. Since I chose to make my molding consist of 5 pieces, I'm going to have to cut the miters on each one of my pieces to 36 degrees. If you'd like to review how to make a multi-sided construction and the math behind it, I suggest you look at my wishing well video, and there's a really short and easy tutorial on how to do the math. This is the poplar stock that I'm going to use for my molding. It's quite a bit thicker than the 3/4 material that I used for the Lazy Susan, and that's so I can have it stick up a good bit on the top so things don't roll off of it. I can see that a lot of this excess material is going to be removed later from this molding, so I'm just going to put screws in here temporarily to hold it together. I didn't use glue at this point. I'm just going to fit it all together and then I'll glue it later. When I put the 2 pieces together, I can see that the cut is less than perfect here. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit off of this side and this side to make them both fit. Nobody's ever going to know that the angles are slightly different. It didn't even require 1/2 degree adjustments on my miter saw to get them to fit. You might have better luck cutting miters this picky with a table saw if you have a sled for your table saw. But don't worry if you didn't get it perfect. Most of the imperfections are going to go away when we route. Before I broke it down, I numbered all of the miters. That way I can put it back together easily. Now it's time to glue. Work quickly when you're gluing, and get it clamped up onto a perfectly flat surface. I'm going to let my glue set up overnight, so in the meantime I'm going to polyurethane these parts. Once this is sanded, the polyurethane will greatly reduce friction on the inside of the bearing. I sanded the pentagon nice and smooth and flat with a palm sander, and then I added this securing device. You need to be sure that this securing device really is secure, because this center point is where we're going to set our screw for our router compass. I extended the miters of the pentagon across the center, square from the opposite side, to find the midpoint. I've drawn 2 circles to indicate where the molding starts and stops. I'm going to do the outside route first because it's the easier of the 2. There's way more at stake with the inside cut. This first route will be made with a 5/16 straight bit. This will free up my circle. It was having a lot of trouble routing down in the groove that it was creating. There was no place for it to exhaust all of the sawdust and stuff, so I decided to take the jigsaw and cut this excess material away. I still left a little bit on the bottom to be safe, so I'm going to take it over to the router table and run it through with this flush trim bit. I just used the disc sander to smooth this edge really nicely with 220 grit. It took out most all of the imperfections left by routing. Now I'm just going to put a little chamfer on the bottom here. Routing rarely, if ever, leaves your wood perfectly smooth. Even if you go at the right speed, and even if you have a new bit, sometimes you'll still get rough spots, especially around these end grains. You're not going to get away without sanding. A great way to sand on a chamfer is to use a block, because if you use a regular piece of sandpaper, it's going to dull the sharp edges of the chamfer. The block also works great on these end grains because it allows you to apply a lot of pressure, and it just seems to rub the imperfections away. It's time to add the decorative edge to the top. I'm going to use this bit and just run it through on the router table. Alright, now comes the moment that I've been planning for since I started this project. I have to make the cut. If this cut is too big or too small, this piece really could be ruined. This next route requires more precision than anything that I've done so far. I've switched my router compass back to one of the halves of the bearing. I've tried to set it as close as I possibly can to this edge, but if anything I'm favoring the inside, because after I route a little way in, I'm going to stop and take the router compass off and see if my part fits into the route. It took 2 or 3 microscopic adjustments, but I think I have it this time. I'm scared to make the route any bigger because I don't want to ruin it. If I have to later before I press the top down into the molding, I can always disc sand this on a degree or 2 of an angle to help it fit tighter at the top. After many passes, I still have about an 1/8 inch to go, and my bit isn't long enough. Needless to say, a bandsaw would be preferable. A little bit of that material is still left on there. I'm just going to zip it off with the flush trim bit though. Well, I got it to fit really nicely. I pressed it down in until it's flush, but it's just dry fit for now. I haven't decided how I'm going to fasten it. I think I'm just going to use glue though. Unfortunately, this project's become so time consuming that I'm going to have to make a part 4 to the video. I hope you stick around.